So for 2024, I have a couple of plans I'd like to lay out and discuss and kind of go through my process of how I'm going to approach Bible study, Bible reading, and faith planning for the upcoming year. So first off, I am using this Bible. It's the NLT version. It's a Hosanna Revival journaling Bible. And as you can see, I have kind of started using it already. There's lines for you to write, and then the text of the Bible is on the left-hand side. So I am really enjoying using a journaling Bible, and it's kind of a newer experience for me than using a text-only Bible. So the focus of the upcoming year is on Bible study. I spent a lot of time reading the Bible in a year, and while that is still something I'm going to do this year, the main focus is kind of on these Bible studies, where we kind of dive deeper beneath the surface and give myself time to kind of let the ideas and the concepts and the stories of the Bible kind of percolate through my brain, and I have some time to sit with it, look through it, analyze it, and really come out with some principles and guidelines for my life. In my previous video, I talked a lot about taking notes, and I took a lot of extensive notes on the Bible and during my Bible studies last year. And one of the issues I kept running up against is that I make all these notes, I have all of these really awesome ideas, and as soon as I, close that notebook away or put it away for a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, when I go back, I don't really have any concept of what I actually learned or what were the key takeaways from each book of the Bible. One of the things I really want to focus on is kind of like how the biblical theology, the ideas and concepts in the Bible, how that meshes with my concept, my idea of what the Bible says, and kind of put that together to find this kind of sweet spot where faith and action meet. Reading the Bible is great, but if it doesn't spur you to action, it is kind of useless, I think. I think the purpose of doing all these Bible studies and the focus of that is that we're trying to put our faith into action. And I kind of have this idea in my head of like what that kind of looks like, how we study the Bible and come up with these biblical theologies and these concepts of God. How does that mesh with my normal everyday experience, my personal theology, and how that comes together creates like that blend, that sweet spot of where faith and action meet, where faith and behavior meet, and where that is kind of like how we express God's will and God's plan into the world through our behavior and our actions, and what we think about the world and our perspective on the world is based on what is in the Bible. And this is just something I'm wrestling with, where I really want to see my faith grow and mature, to really strengthen and deepen it to the point where I have a firm foundation and I want to see things beyond just kind of the surface level concepts. So, for the majority of the Bible, I would say I have a fairly firm grasp of the narrative aspect of it. But when it comes to the subtext and kind of the deeper layers of meaning and more of that kind of philosophical ideas and principles, that's a little bit where I stumble. And that's where commentaries have been really helpful for me, and study Bibles have been really helpful for me. So when it comes to commentaries, there's pretty much two commentaries that I'm using fairly regularly, and that's the New Bible Commentary and the Bible Knowledge Commentary. And both of these are more like single or 1 to 2 volume books on the entire Bible. Some of the explanations they have will be pretty brief in terms of certain passages that you're looking for. And what I am encountering is that some of the questions that I have kind of go beyond the scope of what's written in these kind of whole Bible commentaries. I've already learned some of the base level ideas and some of the more common questions that kind of crop up, which makes these commentaries useful. So I found that I have to go a little deeper and a little further. I'm kind of hitting the limits of usefulness for these particular resources, and I think I have to start diving into book-specific commentaries like this one. This is the exegetical commentary on the New Testament for the book of Mark. Now, this tome itself is pretty much like the size of, the other two books, and it's just on one book of the Bible. So right now, I find that this type of commentary is kind of what I'm looking for in a commentary. I'm able to dialogue with the text a little bit more, to dig a little deeper, to ask deeper questions. And that's kind of really been helpful and mind-blowing to me because I don't have very many of these big commentaries. I have something more like this. This is the Tyndale New Testament commentaries, and this one's on Luke. Now, this is more of an introductory type of commentary. Like, it still does a lot of the things that like this book would have, just kind of on a more abridged, condensed way. And so eventually I would like to get, you know, more deeper books and things like that. Now, because these books are a lot larger and thicker and have a lot more material, my Bible studies going through a book of the Bible has been significantly slowed down. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, because I think if you just know one book of the Bible super well, like, you can still see God there, and you can pull out so many principles, and you can just see so much in-depth knowledge that's just kind of packed into the Bible itself. Even though I may not be able to get, you know, the entire New Testament or Old Testament commentaries, slowly going through these will be just as beneficial. So the whole point of using commentaries is kind of to help you kind of make connections that you won't normally see or don't normally draw from in your Bible studies. And, you know, everybody's path is different. And for me, I've been really trying to figure out better ways to learn and better ways to recall and remember things. And so one of the things I found recently is I'm going to show you like my notes process that has kind of changed and evolved over time. So for example, the book of Ruth, I did a study, and I was using, you know, my normal notes taking process. So it's very linear. It has lots of words. I did it chapter by chapter, and they are quite extensive and they're quite useful. But when I came back to look on it, it didn't really help me out. Like, what am I really trying to look for? Like, what am I supposed to be focusing on? So I went through a couple of iterations of doing kind of like these mind mapping type of notes, where I kind of took these linear notes that I had and kind of placed it in more of a spatial format, using color, using diagrams, using just other ways of processing. And what I kind of landed on is this kind of one-page note here, though it's still pretty extensive and not really where I'm going, but at least it's kind of in the direction that I want to go. So let me take you a little closer into this notes taking process that I'm doing right now. So this post-it note is kind of like my first attempt in trying to condensing concepts into just main ideas, like what is the Ruth all about? And these are kind of the takeaways that I have regarding the book of Ruth, not necessarily on a narrative aspect, but on kind of like application theology aspect. So I've kind of come up with my kind of three main ideas of the book of Ruth and how it's meaningful or significant for me. And then you have the background of Ruth, which kind of gives context to what's going on. And also I put the genealogy, since it's pretty important on how people are linked together and how that kind of flows together and the importance of that. And then on the bottom, it's really small, but it is the narrative. So this is kind of like each chapter starts here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I kind of drew small diagrams and images that kind of help me understand what's going on in the text. And to me, I understand the narrative fairly well. So, I mean, the images really just kind of help me see things at a larger glance. And these are just ways in which I think of what's going on in the text to help me further understand the story or the plot that's going on. Now on the back side, there are a lot of notes here, but this was like a quote that I really liked from a commentary, so I wrote it down. And let's see. So right here, these are the themes. These are just like major concepts or ideas that I found in the book of Ruth that are kind of helpful, and just ways to kind of jog my memory of like how they are useful and what they mean and how they kind of refer to the book itself. So it's not necessarily a full explanation, but just some shorthand notes to get my brain thinking about these things. And then on the bottom here are the kind of key takeaways. And this is how I see like how we can apply what's going on in Ruth to like everyday life. And how I see Ruth if I were to put it into like a more modern context and modern ideas. And not only that, I have a couple more post-it notes here, which is basically like any questions I have that are lingering, and also maybe like further application that I wanted to expand upon. So all of these things are just ways for me to understand the book of the Bible more. And this is just one idea that I've been working on with the book of Ruth. So the whole point of me taking notes and condensing it and putting it into this format, it's just kind of how my brain works on like, how do I narrow it down? What is the main focus? What is the point? What is the significance of this book, and how that relates to faith, and also how it relates to our actions in our everyday world. I have found a lot of value in notating the themes and the application points of Ruth. Like, that's where, to me, is where all the treasure is. And it takes a lot of thinking and pondering and wondering and working with and discussing with commentaries to figure out, you know, how this is relevant for your life. And as you come to study the Bible, you may notice that what you take away from the text may be different than somebody else. Because while there is these kind of global themes that are happening, it's really like very personal on how they relate to you and what resonates with you. And so, you know, I just want to share with you just my process. So the last part of this kind of Bible study plan, faith planning thing is that I'm really trying to read a little bit more Christian books. The first one is Church History in Plain Language. So I'm about halfway through this book, but it's pretty dense, and I've been moving it quite slowly because it is kind of a history book and it's not that exciting, even though it's about, you know, Christianity and church history and stuff. So it does have some interesting things, but it's a little dry, so I'm a little slow in getting through it. And hopefully in 2024, I'll finish the book and it'll just give me more insight into how the church has evolved from, you know, the time of Jesus to now, because it's a lot of time and a lot of things have happened in between, and there have been a lot of movements that have been going on, and just to be aware of that is beneficial to know kind of what happened then and what is happening now. You realize maybe some things have been repeating because we haven't really learned things in the past. So I found it really valuable, and I'm hoping to learn more about that. The second book is this one, Life in the Father's House. It's about the local church, you know, kind of the importance of the local church. And that's just something I'm really working on these days, because I think a lot of times we're hearing a lot about the great de-churching, how a lot of people are leaving the church and finding problems with the church and distrust and all of that stuff. But I think I want to read a little bit more about this book just to see kind of almost a counterpoint to that. You know, you hear a lot of people leaving, but then the ones who stay, and I want to know why they stay, you know? And so that's kind of where I'm at in terms of Christian books. If you have any recommendations, I'd love to know, because I love to read. And so that's kind of where I am with the Bible reading plans and the faith planning and how I'm kind of focusing on my Bible studies. If you have any recommendations, or if you have any good ideas and tips on how to make things stick more, I'd love to know. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.